Welcome, Sens Talk.
Russell winds in, feeds it back across the strike and scores! Brady Tkachuk makes it 2-0. Claude Giroux, hit alone, scores!
Tim Stutzel across, Tkachuk score! The captain, Brady Tkachuk, buries it with 1:18 to go.
See you later. Go, Sens, go. Welcome to Sens Talk. My name is Brandon Plant, and I'm your host. We have some breaking news today coming out of the nation's capital as the Senators look to have found their 14th head coach in franchise history as Travis Green, the former head coach of the Vancouver Canucks and New Jersey Devils, is now your Ottawa Senator head coach, as reported by Darren Dreger and Bruce Garriock, with Elliot Freeman essentially confirming it as well.
I want to be careful about this. Nothing is done until it's done, but I'm hearing all eyes on Travis Green, and we'll see what the next few days brings.
All three of the insiders today essentially confirmed that Travis Green and the Ottawa Senators were very close, if not already done, essentially, on a new contract for him to become the 14th bench boss of your Ottawa Senators. Now look, before we jump into, Travis Green and his resume and everything in between, let me just say this. I'm not going to lose sleep over the Sens hiring Travis Green. Keep in mind, it's not confirmed, but it's essentially confirmed. Yeah, Freeman talking about it. Garriock's talking about the fact that there's going to be a press conference on Wednesday, more likely than not, if the I's and T's are dotted. And Dreger is essentially saying that he signed with Ottawa. So this looks to be done. So I'm not going to speculate on whether it's going to happen or not. It looks to be happening. So I'm not going to lose sleep over the fact that the Sens have hired Travis Green as their next head coach. I'm willing to see how this plays out for a multitude of reasons. I mean, I learned my lesson with the Brady Tkachuk draft pick that, when you don't know a player, you don't know the coach, you shouldn't overreact until you see the results for yourself. So I'm not going to do that. I will say one thing, though. Hiring an unproven and unsuccessful coach, which we're going to get into later in this video, after asking an already restless fan base to wait even longer for the answer behind the bench. Keep in mind, Sens fans starting last year were calling for DJ Smith to be fired. He was fired, many people would say, late into the year, far too late, some would say. So we wasted a year, on DJ Smith and not just making the move early when, the season was already in the dumpster. And now, the Sens kind of waited a little too long here going into the second round of the playoffs, where there's a multitude of bench openings available throughout the National Hockey League. So hiring an unsuccessful and frankly unproven coach, and we're going to dive into it in a second, is anything but best in class. This regime, the management group here in Ottawa, the new regime, they like to claim that they're the best in class, that they're going to do things the right way, the proper way. That's all good and all. That sounds great on paper, but so far the action doesn't look to suggest that is the case. Once again, if this hiring was made for solely financial reasons in mind, I don't know. That is certainly not best in class. Because, I'm not going to say Craig Berube, for example, was going to sign in Ottawa. It looked to be far from the case. It looked like, Toronto, New Jersey, they seemed like more attractive options for Berube. But once again, with the names that were on the list still, especially considering the fact that Sens waited and waited and waited for some reason to hire their long-term coach, it just seems underwhelming when it's Travis Green, considering his resume and his background in the National Hockey League as a head coach. Now we're going to dive into his resume. I think there's a lot more positives here than people are giving him. Frankly, I think there's a lot of overreactions around this hiring, but I also understand the reaction of the hiring because, once again, considering how long Sens fans waited, considering the names that were listed available, it makes sense that expectations were, risen. I mean, Dean Evason, for example, the former Minnesota Wild head coach, would have been a fantastic hire. A fiery guy, a guy that has a proven success record in the National Hockey League, has brought Minnesota, a team with a lack of depth, to be honest with you, which sounds like your Ottawa Senators, to the playoffs multiple times. And yeah, he didn't have great success in the playoffs, fair enough, but it's certainly better than Travis Green and many of the other candidates that were potentially going to be hired by Ottawa. Another guy that was potentially in the mix was a John Gruden or Todd Nelson. But the difference with Nelson and Gruden is they have a ceiling. They have space to grow. I mean, Gruden, I would not have wanted him to be hired. He could be an assistant coach. on this bench. I'd have no issue with that. Not as a head coach, though. I mean, Belleville just beat him in the first round, for example. And then Nelson, he's a Calder Cup winning coach. That's a guy that I would have been interested in. He reminds me of, what Colorado did a couple years ago. They hired their coach, won a Calder Trophy, and then, of course, won the Stanley Cup, right? So he could be that kind of coach. He has a high ceiling. But with Travis Green, it just feels like you know what you're going to get, which is maybe a playoff team, a team that is decently structured, and we're going to talk about this soon, but is not as sexy or as an exciting hire as a Evison or a Berube, of course, or even a Todd Nelson. So I think that's where the underwhelmingness comes in and the frustration really sets in. Is, once again, I'm repeating myself, but Sens fans, we waited for essentially a year, wasted another year of this young core that we have, and another year of Claude Giroux on top of that, to hire a guy that, roughly has the same record as DJ Smith and does not really inspire much confidence and excitement. Now, once again, this can totally work out. I mean, once again, I said it at the beginning of this video. I learned my lesson with Brady Tkachuk and when we drafted him. I'm not going to overreact, especially when it comes to hires or signings for players I've not watched or haven't, seen the guy that we're hiring as head coach the other teams. I haven't really watched a lot of Vancouver. I haven't really seen a lot of New Jersey. I'm not going to critique his style. I'm only going to talk about what to expect from him as a Sens head coach. Because once again, the last thing I want to do is bash a guy I don't know much about. I've done some research. I've laid down essentially what you should know about the coach, what to expect from, Coach Green going into this training camp, going into the preseason, and of course the regular season, and hopefully the playoffs. I'm going to let you decide whether you like him or not. That's not my job. That's your job. That's for you to decide whether you like this hire or not. I'm just going to give you the facts. And speaking of the facts, let's jump right into the facts. So here are some stats you need to know. Of course, he was the head coach in Vancouver. We'll talk about his time there in a second. But most recently, he was the interim head coach for the New Jersey Devils for the last 21 games of their season. This year, he had an overall record of 8-12-1. Look, let's keep in mind the Devils were missing some key guys down the stretch. They had essentially no goalie until Jake Allen stepped in. It was a really non-winnable situation for Travis Green in New Jersey for those final 21 games. I'm not going to take a deep look into that. I'll be honest with you. For any coach, especially on a team like the Devils, with a lot of inconsistency issues, injury issues, goaltending issues, sounds like Toronto Senators, right? That's a team that just had a bad year, and that happens for teams. So in an interim spot, not much you can really ask for from Travis Green, but his overall record really paints more of the picture you should understand for Coach Green. He has an overall record in the National Hockey League as a head coach with 141 wins, 159 losses, and 35 overtime losses. He's also 10-7 in the playoffs, so an above 500 record in the playoffs. But unfortunately, in the regular season, what matters to get to the playoffs, below 500, record, which is exactly what we had previously with DJ Smith. He's also missed the playoffs 4 out of the last 5 years behind the bench. Now, do keep in mind that Jim Benning was the general manager of the Canucks during his tenure in Vancouver. That's not easy. That is not easy whatsoever. But you can say the same thing about DJ Smith, right, with Pierre Dorion. So I don't know if that's exactly an excuse, but it definitely provides more context for the dysfunctionality that was, happening behind the scenes there in Vancouver. Not all of it was Travis Green's fault. In fact, I'm sure most of it was not. Vancouver at the time was very dysfunctional. But, that record's not inspiring. As I've already said, you had an Evison guy, for example, from, Minnesota, who Garriock mentioned, him and Staios met on more than one occasion. You had McClellan as another guy that potentially could be hired, a guy that's had a lot of playoff appearances, some success in the playoffs. Claude Julien, even the other day, mentioned how he wants to, coach for the Ottawa Senators, literally asking for the job and speaking to the media. So it's an interesting hire. It's a bit of an underwhelming hire. It's an interesting hire. It's a hire where you have to hope that Staios has a reason for why he picked Green over a Dean Evison, for example, or Todd McClellan, for example, right? There has to be a reason. Now, as I already mentioned, Garriock said that the Sens are likely going to be doing a press conference to introduce new Coach Green on Wednesday. We'll probably get more insight on that on Wednesday. I'll have an update video for you guys Wednesday after that press conference to break it all down. Do not worry. I thought I should get my thoughts out there right away, though, which is why I'm doing this now. But yeah, once again, with the options that were available, it just seems underwhelming, but that does not mean it can't work. That does not mean it cannot work. I think it could work. I mean, once again, based off the media I've seen of Travis Green, he's a very vocal, hands-on coach. I mean, just check out his mic'd on appearance with Vancouver in their training camp a couple of years ago. It's on YouTube. I just watched it. He's very hands-on, very vocal. He really works with the players, doesn't sit back, and that's what this team needs. I mean, shout out to the Locked On guys on Twitter for mentioning this as well, bringing it to my attention. But he's notorious for his very, very tough training camps. I mean, there's some, I won't say iconic, but infamous pictures of Canuck players absolutely gassed after his practice sessions. So if you wanted a guy that's going to kick, for lack of better words, this team in the ass and get them going and light a fire under their bums and get this team finally going and get some passion and some energy on a nightly basis, he could be the guy in that regard. And that's why I like Dean Evason, for example. That's why I really, really like a guy like Craig Berube, for example. So he might bring a type of atmosphere like that to the room, which I think is great. Just he doesn't have that winning pedigree like a Berube, like an Evason, right? So that's where the underwhelmingness and the hesitation and the concern, frankly, comes in, is he's not proven, and the Sens have to nail this head coach hire. They have to nail it. So, once again, it could work. It just, once again, looking at his resume, his record, it gives you a bit of hesitation, but hey, who knows? Who knows how a coach can connect with a group and inspire a group and bring the best out of a group. So I'm willing to see what happens, and I'm really excited to see, hopefully he proves a lot of people wrong, because once again, we don't control the situation. We don't control who they hire. We're just fans of the team. So at the end of the day, this is what it is. You can choose to sulk. You can choose to be angry. Fair enough. All within your right. I'm choosing to give him the benefit of the doubt, see what he's got, and see what the team has got with him behind the bench, because what other choice do I have? So besides that, I mean, you know, the last thing I'll mention about Travis Green is he's a very detail-orientated coach. Structure is very critical for him. Now you can debate whether that structure and those systems are good or bad, based off his time in Vancouver and, you know, New Jersey. You could definitely have a debate on that. But one thing is for sure, the Sens have not had any structure, any systems for over half a decade. So that will certainly be a nice change of pace, and hopefully Travis Green could bring the best out of this group, the best out of this team, and bring them back to the playoffs for the first time in over 7 years. But besides that, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Would you prefer a Berube, an Evason, a McLennan, a Julian, a Gruden, a Nelson, etc.? Or are you happy with Travis Green as the next head coach of your Ottawa Senators? But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm willing to see what happens. I hope he has success. Once again, welcome to Ottawa, Travis Green. Looking forward to see what you can do, and hopefully next year is a successful one. So yeah, besides that, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all back on Wednesday to break down the press conference and talk about the hire when it's official. I'll also see you all tomorrow night for a special draft lottery stream with Vice President Noah Luden and maybe others. So stay tuned for that tomorrow night at around 7 o'clock. But yeah, besides that, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Go Sens, go!